She wants to eradicate the GOP, not just of Trump the person, but of Trump's influence, of Trumpsters, of people who are in the same vein as Trump.
There's no wonder why people hate the American legislature. There's a reason. The legislature does not legislate. Our elected officials do not represent us. All they do all day long is just yell on cable news for power. It's pretty crazy.
Why is it that America has such a disappointing Congress? Because in a lot of ways, Liz Cheney is exactly like Congress. Deeply unpopular and owned by special interests.
Liz Cheney is on the warpath against Trump. Now, you might think that Liz Cheney would be chastened by the fact that there was a vote in the Republican House to see if she should be thrown off her number 3 position in the GOP leadership. This was coming on the heels of a number of counties in Liz Cheney's own district voting to chastise her, to censure her for her voting to impeach Trump. But having survived the House GOP challenge, and evidently with the support of GOP leader Kevin McCarthy, Liz Cheney has decided, I'm going to go full never Trump.
Somebody who has provoked an attack on the United States Capitol to prevent the counting of electoral votes, which resulted in 5 people dying, who refused to stand up immediately when he was asked and stop the violence. That is a person who does not have a role as the leader of our party going forward.
And it's very difficult to make the claim that he is responsible for incitement because of the colorful language that he used in the months leading up to January 6th, but that other politicians who use similarly colorful language are not also guilty of incitement when violence breaks out from people who agree with them. This is the biggest flaw in the entire Democratic argument with regard to impeachment.
Let's consider what Liz Cheney is really calling for. She wants to eradicate the GOP, not just of Trump the person, but of Trump's influence, of Trumpsters, of people who are in the same vein as Trump. So let's consider who those people are and how many they make up. The bottom line of it is Trump has huge support in the Republican Party, 85 to 90%. Liz Cheney, by contrast, her support has plummeted. I think the latest figure, 13% approval in Wyoming right now, 13%. So essentially what Liz Cheney wants to do is preserve, apparently, this principled 13% and eradicate the GOP of the remaining 87%.
Those that are in charge have been here for decades. Decades. Do you know the average age of retirement? It's around 64, 65 years old in the private sector, but not here in Congress. They cling to power as long as they can because apparently it's addictive and they can't give it up. This is something that I just can't tolerate. I can't take it, and the American people are so sick of it. You see, a record number of Americans voted for President Trump. Record number of Republicans voted for President Trump. Do you want to know why? It's because they loved his policies. They loved his fight. They loved the fact that for once we had a president that stood up for America, stood up for American businesses, and remembered the forgotten man.
So the political wisdom of this, you may say, is questionable, to say the least. You have a woman who couldn't be elected dog catcher today in Wyoming, calling for a president who is as if not more popular than Reagan in his own party to be, quote, purged. This, to me, borders on political idiocy. It makes absolutely no sense.
And it really does demonstrate that what this really is about for a lot of folks, as always, is the PR. Right? We have a Congress that doesn't actually do anything for a living. We have a Congress that tweets things and goes on cable news. They have the same job that I do, except that I'm not paid by taxpayer money, nor am I your elected representative. Right? We have a Congress that does not pass bills. We have a Congress that does not negotiate. We have a Congress that does nothing, except every once in a while, they vote on some giant omnibus spending package. They toss all power over to the executive branch. A bunch of unelected bureaucrats govern your life. And then Congress goes on Twitter and talks jack about other people. That's pretty much what Congress does for a living these days. There's no wonder why people hate the American legislature. There's a reason. The legislature does not legislate. Our elected officials do not represent us. All they do all day long is just yell on cable news for power. It's pretty crazy.